everyone, welcome to Chess Visor, your wise choice to improve your chess. Let's talk about this game played between Levon Aronian and Praggnanandhaa from WR Masters round number 1, and it's being played at the place called Düsseldorf, Germany. So with the white pieces, Levon starts the game with 1 c4 and Pragg plays pawn to e5, and Levon continues with the move g3, trying to feature the bishop on the light square and to control the center with the piece. So here, to counter that idea, Pragg plays the move pawn c6, and that comes with a small disadvantage. That is simple, you cannot put the knight on c6. So considering this, Levon plays the move pawn to d4, because when you capture the pawn, Levon can capture with the move queen takes d4, and there is no knight c6 to hit the queen to gain the tempo, the valuable tempo. So that's what is happening here. So he plays pawn e4 considering this, and again Pragg is preparing the move pawn to d5 with e4 advanced. So if you play something like bishop g2, d5 is coming, so Levon has to play this move, that is pawn to d5 himself. So bishop b4 check, bishop d2 blocking the check, queen e7, knight h3, and we have knight f6. In this position, if you consider something like knight c3 or pawn a3, so in the game actually he played knight c3. So if you consider something like a3, black could easily equalize the game immediately, like bishop takes d2 check, knight takes d2, and then the pawn can be pushed and ruin the pawn structure. And going back in this position, if you consider taking the bishop with the queen, then black could play something like c takes d5 and then c takes d5. I think after d6 black is doing fine. So going back in the game, he plays knight c3. So considering the pressure in the center, so he is playing knight c3. So after c takes d5 in this position, Levon immediately did not capture the pawn, rather he played knight f4. After bishop takes c3, he played bishop takes c3. And after d takes c4, as you can see, Levon is actually down 2 pawns temporarily. And as you are going to witness, and he is going to recover the pawns, and also he is going to give some kind of weakness to the black. Already, as you can see, the d7 pawn or the d pawn is going to be a weak isolated pawn. So let's see how the game progresses. So e3, just trying to recover one of his pawn. So knight c6, g4, and I thought, okay, he's going to capture the pawn immediately, but here Levon plays the move pawn to g4, hinting that he is going to put the rook on g1, and also he is trying to push the pawn to g5 and try to attack on the king side immediately. So here Pragg simply stops it by playing pawn h6, and we have bishop takes c4, recovering one of his pawns. So d6, as I said, there is this weakness again. I just want to remind you that. And here Levon plays the rook g1, preparing the move g5. Here, considering this idea, actually Pragg plays the move bishop to d7. So he is actually preparing to castle on the queen side to meet some kind of pawn storms on the king side. Okay, so here Levon plays the move knight to d5. After knight takes d5, we have queen takes d5, forming this battery thing, and also as you can see, g7 is under attack, and for the time being you cannot touch the pawn. If you simply capture this, the rook is going to come to the g8, and then your bishop is under attack, and once you move the bishop, and g5 is falling. So that's why you cannot take it immediately, but that's a threat actually. So here what Pragg did was actually castle on the queen side, okay, allowing Levon Aronian to capture on f7. So after this whole transaction, queen takes f7, bishop takes f7, and now you see knight e5. So this is actually the only move to at least to try to neutralize the game. So rest of the moves are I think white would gain more advantage. So knight e5, trying to force the exchange here, but the problem is after bishop takes e5, d takes e5, and now Levon attacks the pawn, so Pragg defends it, but the problem is after bishop takes c6, b takes c6. Now this is the problem. This is actually a long time weakness. As you can see, there is this double pawn on the e file, and also there is two isolated pawn on a and c file respectively, right? So how to manage this, or how white is going to target this, and I think in the next 20 or 30 moves, that's what we are going to witness. So let's see, immediately he attacks rook c1 by rook c1, rook d6 defending, king e2 artificially castles. So rook h d8, so trying to infiltrate on the second rank, and now that's defended, rook c2. So here he plays the move pawn to g5. The plan is very simple. It's because if you don't play something like pawn to g5, white will sometimes he will play g5 himself, so that will create some problem on the king side. So that's why Pragg played the move g5 himself and stopping any pawn advances. Rook g c1 doubling on the c file, threatening c6, king b7 defending that. And now if you are thinking about playing something like b4, it's actually a very good move. That's what actually Stockfish likes, that move. It's because you are actually stopping either a5 or c5. However, in the game, Levon did not go for this, but he played b3. So it's actually equally good move. He is preparing something like a4 later. And Pragg played rook d5. It's a tactical motive, and also is setting up a small kind of counter attack. If you had to capture something like rook takes c6, then rook d2 check is coming, forcing the king back, and then a2 is falling, the other rook is coming into the game. So you don't want to allow this position when you are actually in a better position. So do not allow the counter attack. So king e1 played prophylactically moving the king away and threatening to capture on c6 now. So rook 8 d6, now that's defended. Rook c4, eyeing that weakened pawn on e4 square, and he plays rook d3. So with rook d3, he plays rook 1 c2, so covering in the second rank. So going back in this position, if you are thinking about the immediate capture, rook takes e4, that is fine actually. Rook to d2, rook a1, and then rook to d5, so something like this, but it is actually playable. But in the game, he plays rook 1 c2 immediately, because that e4 pawn is not going anywhere, right? So rook d1 check, king e2, and then rook h1. Now, as you can see, now Pragg's rook is infiltrated, and also it is trying to give some counter attack on the king side, and h2 is a weakness actually. So why did Levon allow this? It's because he is having more weaknesses than Levon, so he allowing this. So rook takes e4, rook d5 defending again, rook e c4 threatening c6, rook d6 defending, rook b4 check, king c7, and then he plays rook b5, so taking advantage of the pin. And here in this position, interestingly, black has the chance to neutralize the game, or try to equalize the game in this position. So the move is actually rook f6. If you put the rook on f6, it's actually preparing one tactical motive. Say for example, to illustrate that, I can play something like rook a5, and now comes the move rook takes f2 check, taking advantage of the fact that this rook is undefended. So after king takes f2, I can skewer the rook like this. So that's what. And going back in this position, if you are thinking about, okay, why should one play something like rook a5? If you don't want to play something like that move, you can play rook c5, okay, rook b c5. Then also you can play the move rook takes h2, and now this pawn is under fire for the second time. That means you have to go defensive, king f1. So this kind of counter attacking chances were there with the move rook f6, but in the game he did not play. So he played the move rook e6. So rook a5 threatening a7, rook takes h2, rook takes a7 check, and now after king b6, he plays the move rook to f7 himself, and now that is defended. f2 is defended, and also this rook is very active, so he can attack this pawn and this pawn in multiple ways. So e4. So for the time being, he fixes the f2 pawn, and Levon plays the move pawn to a4, and now he is playing on the other side, queen side. Rook h1, pawn to b4, rook a1 threatening the pawn, so the pawn goes and gives the check, king b5 and rook b7 check, and now the pawn is defended. The king is going to a4 now, so rook b6 threatening c6, rook d6, so there is no way to save the pawn. And it's not that okay, we cannot immediately capture that because our b4 is hanging. So rook to d2 challenging the rook, and Pragg has accepted the challenge. So rook takes d2 check, king takes d2, and then he plays the move pawn to c5. In this position, if you are thinking about something like rook a2 check, that's playable, but still white is going to win the game. So king c3. If you go behind this rook takes f2, that is f2 pawn, then white can simply advance the pawn. So rook f8, a7, rook a8, and then rook b7. Your king is never going to help the rook to capture this pawn, so you have to go down like a king a3 and then king c4. It's winning. So that is why in the game he did not play that move immediately, so rather he played a pawn to c5, trying to ruin the white's pawn structure a little bit. So after b takes c5, he plays king takes a5, and now we have a clear passer on the c file. After king c3, the idea is very simple. He wants to put the rook on b2, and then the c1 is covered. When you give the check on c1 square, then that will be covered with the rook c2 move, and then the passer is going to go up, and then we can simply move the king to d file, and then we can push the pawn. And after rook a2, he plays the move rook f6, and instead of that he could have played directly rook b2 is a winning move. He will play that move in a couple of moves later. So rook f6, rook a4, and then again he comes back rook b6, rook a2, and then he plays rook b2. And here Pragg simply captured, and after king takes b2, Pragg played king b5, and then after king b3 he simply resigned. This is an elementary ending. If you know the concept called basic opposition, you can easily win this ending. So you may be thinking, okay, black can simply capture the pawn. Why would one resign in this position? It's because white can simply gain more grounds. That's what. So king c3, gaining opposition, and now as you can see, the king was there on c5, and now he left control over the b4 square. So like that we are going to gain 1 squares. So like this, and then at one point of time you are going to give up some material. So like this, king f5, g4, e4, and then we can simply queen the pawn and win the game. So that is why, considering all this, so since it was an elementary game, so Pragg did not want to test Levon's technique, so he simply resigned after king b3. So if you enjoy this quick commentary, please do like this video, and please share your thoughts, ideas and suggestions in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe the channel, and also press the bell icon to get notified for the future videos. As usual, this is Chess Wiser, your wise choice to improve your chess.